How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. Today I'm going to speak with Tyler Hill. Recently, he made a video talking about how much Solana you need, and we had him on the channel before. Everyone absolutely loved him and loved the video talking about how high he thought Solana could go. So we're going to have him back on the channel. If you don't mind, hit subscribe. Turn on the bell notification underneath the video to see future videos just like this. I'm going to have more guests on during the bull market. I'll also leave a link to Tyler's YouTube channel underneath the video, so go subscribe to him, give him some love. There's also a link down there to Margex in case you want to trade cryptocurrency on leverage. You can try it out. You don't need to KYC, which means you don't need to put in a lot of personal information. You can set it up in just a few seconds. If you're not welcome on other exchanges, you're welcome here. Definitely check that out underneath the video. And there's a link down there to HG Algo too, where you can get bullish momentum and bearish momentum signals that can be really helpful for this kind of market. It can help you trade. And then also you can turn on the DCA feature, which tells you when a good time to dollar cost average into the market might be. This has been awesome so far. It's actually been super helpful. So definitely check this out underneath the video as well. How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. Today we have Tyler Hill on the channel with us. Tyler, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on the channel again, man. I know I was here not too long ago, so happy to be back and kind of get some updates going.
Yeah, definitely. And I had to have you on because last time we had you on, you gave your Solana price targets or predictions, and people loved that video. Like, it continues to get views today. People are, I think, going over to your channel for that. So I wanted to do an update video because recently I saw that you had a video talking about how people need to get to 15 Solana. Can you explain why people need to get to 15 Solana or why that's the magic number?
Yeah. So this is gonna take a second. I'm gonna kind of give you my little thesis here, but so it kind of stems from the whole idea of kind of what everyone's perception of a goal is at the end of the day, right? I don't want to say that 15 is a magic number for necessarily everyone, but I do believe it's the magic number for the vast majority. Now, the way that I kind of concluded that was I kind of just made some polls, on Twitter, on YouTube, Patreon, Discord, things like that, and just said like, hey, if in a best case scenario, based off your financial situation, where you are right now, if you had a crypto that you were holding, that you're a fan of, what would be the number where you would feel some sort of satisfaction? Like, where would you generally be happy at, right? That was just kind of the idea. It was more of a thought experiment more than anything. And overwhelmingly, the number was about $10,000. They're like, if we can have a 5-figure holding in my favorite crypto, like, I would feel happy. And to some people that may be, out of reach, right? Realistically. And some people that might be nothing, but for the majority of people, that was just, the number that they were the most excited about, that they would feel satisfied at. Now, I think you and I both know generally when you hit those types of goals, the next goal becomes past that. So is that going to be the one that everyone will forever be satisfied at? No, but it's at least a start for the thought experiment. So the reason we got to 15 was basically just saying, okay, well, if my goal is to see a Solana, position that's worth, say, $10,000, right? What, based off of my price prediction of where I think Solana conservatively can go throughout this next run, what amount of Solana would it take? And that number ended up coming out to roughly about 15 because my personal conservative price prediction is around $600 to $675. Now, the question then becomes obviously, well, okay, so we know what we want to see. We want to know the amount, of course, but how do we get to $675? And so that's kind of what the video was about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and actually share my screens really quickly and kind of go through my entire thesis of how I got to that number. Now, it really started off more from a fundamental based perspective. And let me double check. You can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Cool.
You're good.
So it came down from a fundamental perspective. I'm not one of those people that genuinely believes that you can base your thesis of where a crypto's price can go purely off of technical analysis, right? Especially in a world like crypto that is so volatile, that is rather small in grand scheme of things. You can't base it purely off of TA because too many environmental factors can cause things that you weren't expecting, right? You think back to an FTX-like situation back in November, it felt, or 2022, it felt as if, right? Or realistically, if you look at any of these mass movements that have happened within crypto, the overall energy around the market felt different than what happened, right? So I remember when FTX happened, the crash happened, et cetera, we all kind of felt like the market was somewhat bottoming out to some degree, but then FTX just kind of pulls a rug and the fall continues, right? And if I was purely basing my theories or my thesis purely off of just technical analysis, I wouldn't have seen any of that coming. So because of that, what I've always said is when I base my thesis or I don't even know the plural for thesis, but whenever I make a thesis and base kind of what I think is going to happen off of that, I include fundamental and technical perspectives. So the first one being a fundamental perspective, and I think the easiest thing you can do is just look at something like the total value locked. It's just kind of a representation of what is actually happening on chain. Okay, obviously we've seen development on chain. Obviously we have seen the overall growth of the ecosystem, meme coins doing well, etc. But this is a good representation of the trust in the ecosystem, which in general is what allows prices to climb over the long term, because selling pressure is rather diminished when people trust an ecosystem. And looking at something like Solana's TVL, currently we actually saw a milestone that we hit just yesterday in which Solana hit $2 billion TVL, meaning that there was $2 billion worth of crypto that is now staked or locked amongst the Solana ecosystem. And considering the fact that the previous all-time high for TVL was right around $10 billion back in 2021, it tells me that even through all the craziness, in which realistically considering Solana is almost half or about 40% recovered from its all-time high already, it's only about 20% recovered in TVL. And what that tells me is that by the time we see this ecosystem really thriving like it once was, I genuinely believe Solana's price is going to be significantly higher than it was at the time in which it was at peak thriving point, if that makes sense. Now, from a technical perspective, so that's kind of the fundamental side of things. Now, from a technical perspective, what I am seeing is that Solana is interacting pretty on point with how it always has. It always has. I've talked on my channel probably about Solana 2 to 3 times a week for the last 2 to 3 years straight, right? And so because of that, I've been able to watch it rather closely day in and day out to see how it interacts with certain things. And Solana has a strong tendency to consistently interact with Fibonacci levels. I know in the last time I came on the channel, I explained what Fibonacci's were, but these are basically just key points of liquidity, or just psychologically, really. At the end of the day, it's just all psychological points in which you can expect there to be a liquidity, either bearish or bullish, right? And what we've noticed with Solana is that Solana has a strong tendency to interact with 3 key levels on its Fibonacci's. Key level number 1 is a range between the 0.618 and the 0.786. This is the general little range where this is the decision-making zone, right? When Solana approaches the 618 to 786 Fibonacci range, it's either going to get rejected very hard off of it, or it's going to get sent through it. So this is kind of the decision-making zone, and it's not immediate, but it is kind of either a big wall or a big door. And generally speaking, where we are with crypto right now, it does seem as if, even if it's not right now, right? Even if Solana does for some reason get rejected, which I don't see a $20 Solana happening anytime soon, but let's just say it does get rejected, I do believe that throughout this bull market, we're going to see ourselves surpass the 786 zone, and I think we're going to do it pretty convincingly. Now, once that happens, generally for Solana, and this is what I've based the second half of my thesis off of, is Solana has about 80 to 90% chance, roughly, just of course there are exceptions, but generally, of seeing an extension to its 1.272 Fibonacci level. That's just what Solana does. You can go through example after example after example of how Solana's price has interacted once it's cleared a macro high. And the 1.272 Fibonacci level is the level in which you will see its price go to almost every single time. Step number 1 is, of course, clearing the 786 zone right here. Step number 2 is, of course, clearing that macro high and establishing, or failing to establish a double top, right? We don't want to see the double top establishment. We clear that. Step number 3 is the 1.272 Fibonacci extension, which in this example for Solana is, of course, $678. So, of course, if you multiply $678, which is the range in which I do believe we will reach based off of its Fibonacci's, based off of its chart history, and based off of the way it has always interacted with these levels, considering if you multiply against 678 times 15, that puts you at $10,100, which does conclude my thesis of why you need 15 Solana. So I know that was a little bit long-winded, but that was the overall thought experiment that we did over on the channel there.
That's awesome. And that's an interesting level an interesting amount that you picked. I just was on a call with someone and we were talking about Bitcoin, and they said really a key level is 0.21 Bitcoin. And there's more of a reason for it than just the dollar value. It's having to do with how much Bitcoin there is out there, how many people want to buy it in terms of millionaires. But it's interesting. The numbers work out to be the same. 0.21 Bitcoin is about $11,000. And he said that that was a good level too, because it's not life-changing money in the sense that you're going to retire on it, but that is a significant emergency fund. That's enough to pay for a really nice vacation and that kind of thing. It's like a big nest egg that can help you, like that. It's kind of an arbitrary number, but it can kind of get you focused on the next goal. And then after you hit that goal, of course, you're going to try to get to 0.25 or 0.25 Bitcoin or maybe 20 Solana. And then you just keep on moving from there. But I like how you break that down. Now, the question is, though, how do you get there? Let's say someone's starting with 1 Solana or 2 Solana right now. Like, let's say they have a couple $1,000s sitting around. Should they just buy all at once, or should they dollar cost average? Should they trade their way up there to try to get more Solana, what's the best option?
Yeah. So I think it'd be best that I start with what not to do. And this is all my opinion. Of course, I'm not a financial advisor, all that good stuff, right? But at the end of the day, I definitely don't think that this is the market to be trying to trade your way up to 15 Solana, right? I don't think that it's buy Solana low, sell Solana high, to buy it low again, to sell it high, to buy it low, to sell it high, and to accumulate over time. And the reason I say that is because the likelihood of you prematurely selling in a bull market is very high. It's very high. For example, if you would have sold Solana when it hit $80 because it was fully extended on a 4x off of $20, yeah, you might have done well. But realistically, now Solana's at $100. And what likely would have happened is that you'd have sold it at 80. You'd have got paranoid that it wasn't falling. It would have climbed to 120. You'd have freaked out and bought it at 120. And now you're at 100. And now that position's down from where you rebought in at. And so overall, in my opinion, I think trying to trade the way up is probably not the best idea. So that kind of leaves the two options. Option number one is DCAing. Option number two is just lump sum, just buy 15 now and just wait. Personally speaking, I think it's all situational, but I do believe that the general best practice here would be to just dollar cost average your way up. Now, that's something that I've preached over and over and over again over on my channel. And I mean, on top of that, I mean, you already know it's something that you and I have both talked about at this point. We have done a lot of work to put out something like HG Algo, and I'm not going into a plugging session right here, but the whole point of why we even released HG Algo, which is our indicator, was quite simply that it provides DCA features. It provides some of the best times to be buying into something like Solana so that you can get the best entries to slowly stack your way up and accumulate your way up. And the reason that I personally just believe that in this market, in the market we're in currently, that the best thing to do is to quite simply just DCA is that this is going to be one of probably the most volatile markets that we've maybe seen before. I think you have to realize that with all of the institutional investment, with all of these big whales coming in, I'm a tinfoil hat guy myself, right? And with all of these people coming in, I think that the strings that they're going to be pulling are going to be much more extreme. I think as we see something like Bitcoin supply kind of get shocked, I think as we start to see the demand substantially overwhelming the supply, that a lot of these whales and a lot of these quote unquote market movers or manipulators, whatever you want to call it, I think they're going to get into a position in which they want to hoard as much crypto as they possibly can. They want to take it from as many people as possible because they see what's happening, right? And so because of that, I think volatility is going to strike in the sense that there's going to be huge movements up and huge movements down rather fast. I think volatility is going to be higher than we've ever seen it before. I think liquidations are going to be higher than we've ever seen it before because the likelihood is that leverage is going to enter in the market again. And that's a perfect formula for them to, of course, move these prices to liquidate people. And so in my opinion, because of the volatility that I'm expecting to come, I think, again, trading is not a good idea, especially if you can get liquidated. And I mean, in a grand scheme of things, you want a 3x, 4x, 5x leverage trade, do as you please, right? I think that's great if you have a strategy. But those 100x trades and things like that, I just think it's a ridiculous risk to take in a macro environment in which the likelihood is cryptos are going to go up, right? And so with that in mind, as I mentioned before, because of that volatility, that's going to come with emotions. Emotions drive stupid decisions, and stupid decisions cost you money, right? And so for me, dollar cost averaging is easily the way that you avoid that. And since it's such a sure shot, in my opinion, that we see this market continue upwards, just slowly entering in is the best approach, in my opinion. So
yeah, and I think we like to simplify things on the channel here too, but I know that I'm taking a bit of a dual approach. Like I have my main crypto bag. I've had people say like, oh, I'm going to wait. I'm going to sell right now and I'm going to wait until Bitcoin hits 38,000. I'm not taking that risk because then I'm possibly missing out on a 3x. So I'm not touching that long-term crypto bag for now, but using a bit of leverage, not trying to sell and then buy back in lower or something, but looking at technical analysis. Okay, we're at a very key resistance. We broke out. Maybe we retest it and then bounce right back up. Then like lower leverage, like you say, not 100x, but 5x or something like that. I'm willing to take calculated bets on, but that is a good way of going about it. I think for most people is like the psychology is the biggest thing that will get people in this next bull market to lose money or not make money. It's not actually selling or buying at the wrong times, but like getting too greedy or getting too scared, that kind of thing.
yeah,
So
totally.
Solana's consolidating a little bit right now. It's down almost to 100. Ethereum's spiking up to almost 3,000. I remember just a little while ago, I think Solana was 20% higher. Ethereum was 25% lower. Do you think now's like a good time to be switching from ETH into Solana or vice versa to try to take advantage of the pump or the dip? What do you think?
I personally am kind of a man of diversification to some degree. And I think what'll kind of shine through this is the fact that I'm kind of very traditional in the way that I approach it. In my opinion, the way that I'm seeing this market playing out right now is that the natural cycles are playing out as they should, right? It's everything within everything is cycle based. I mean, I would say almost every aspect of life is cyclical. And I think that's even more applicable to something like crypto. And so what we're seeing right now is the Solana narrative slow down. We're seeing the Solana meme coin narrative slow down. We're seeing it kind of establish its new position within this market as a generally good ecosystem that can house some of these projects. But at the end of the day, the hype around Solana and the newness of a Solana pump is slowing down. And so, of course, because of that, because we are all somewhat at heart degenerate gamblers, we're going to look for the next thing that's exciting. And of course, I'm sure a lot of people are seeing some of these ERC, that narrative really starting to pop off again. And you're starting to see some of these, just ETH-based meme coins or ETH-based cryptos and things of that nature starting to catch momentum. When you mix in the fact that there are talks in general, maybe speakings of a possible Ethereum ETF one day, especially seeing the amount of inflows we've seen into the market because of the Bitcoin ETF, even the general idea that some sort of similar inflows to some degree could happen for Ethereum is causing at least some people enough to want to see Ethereum succeed. And I am one of those people. I want to see Ethereum succeed. And so because, again, we're in a situation in which we're seeing hype die in one place, we're going to see that the crypto market's fickle, right? We're going to see those people leave one ecosystem looking for the next big opportunity. And obviously they know Ethereum. We see that wave happening right now with a lot of the companies on chain. And so, of course, it's normal to see that transition of liquidity. Now, so with that in mind, obviously, my opinion is that switching or selling Solana for Ethereum, it's probably not a good idea. Selling Ethereum for Solana, also probably not a good idea. And the reason being is that if you do that, that seems to me, and just my personal expectation or personal opinion, is that you're chasing something. And I think in the world of crypto, chasing is always bad. It's always bad. You will almost always lose because chasing will almost always induce emotion that is usually just not good. And so to me, it's like, it can be as simple as if you've been dollar cost averaging $100 a week into Solana, you can start dollar cost averaging $50 into Solana, not 50 into Ethereum. I think that's great. I think that's perfectly fine. And if you want to implement your strategy going forward, that's a great thing. But taking a bag that you built up now to switch it over to the next best opportunity could easily cause a big mess up in your opinion, right? Because, or in your situation, because say, for example, you start selling some Solana for Ethereum or vice versa. Then the one you sold goes up and the one you didn't and the one you bought goes down. What are you going to do? Likelihood is here, you're going to flip it back. You're going to try to get your bag back. And then you might just happen to buy that Ethereum bag back as Ethereum starts going down. Now Solana starts going up. And then you're going to be the guy on Discord and Reddit screaming that the market goes against you, right? I just don't think it's a good idea personally. But I do think being aware of narratives and using future strategies, using future dollar cost average, future purchases, whatever, to get in front of the next narrative is a great idea. And Ethereum does seem as if it's destiny to make its run at some given point. Do I think it's going to be bigger than some of these altcoins? No. But I think it's a much more sure bet than some of these altcoins for sure.
Great. We have very similar thoughts on that. What's a realistic price prediction for Solana? I think you said maybe 600, but by end of year. And then what's like a bullish price prediction?
I think that by the end of the year, I don't want to go out and say that this is a prediction, right? Because I think whenever you say prediction, you're saying that you think it's going to happen. I would just say that it's a strong possibility. I would say that there's a very strong possibility that Solana surpasses its previous all-time high this year. And that's my conservative opinion. I think where Solana is at now is stronger than it was at any given point in 2021. I personally have seen from just more back-end things, whether it's from the ventures perspective or whether it's just from an influencer perspective, I've seen so much development, so many things that are preparing to happen towards the end of this year, so many companies ready to launch by mid-year to end of the year, post the halving. Generally, the halving does bring a slowdown, right? So generally, the Bitcoin halving does actually slow the market down a little bit. And after that cool down, summertime is always kind of boring in general. I think that Q3, Q4 could be pretty exciting. And I think at that given point, we could see Solana really make that run. And until Q3, it could slow down. It might not do much until then. So I think conservatively, I do believe we could see a Solana surpass its all-time high. Maybe put in a $300 to $400 Solana by the end of the year. Maybe that's even feeling a little bit, crazy to some degree. I think 2025 should be the year in which we do see a lot of things happen as well. Obviously, we will see the new president in office in January, and new president, same president, who knows? I don't care what happens. I just want to make some money, right? There's going to be that. Obviously, next year should come with a decrease of interest rates, which generally in these periods in which interest rates are decreasing, you see risk on assets doing better. And I think Solana is now establishing itself as a vet of the crypto world. And I think that establishes it as one of the best choices for a risk on asset. And so I think at that given point, anywhere from $600 to $1,000 Solana sometime next year, I think that's within the realm of possibilities. And if you want me to get real crazy, go watch the other video where I talked about a $2,000 Solana one day. I got some funny messages about that one, but that's my opinion. So I think next year, 600 to 1,000 is possible. This year, all-time high to $400 is very possible as well. But who knows, of course.
Yeah. Crypto is a great place to be. It's one of the only places where you can buy something when people are freaked out and then get 100x within a couple of years, and not something that's crap, like something that's big in the industry. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for joining us. Again, your links are down below, so go follow Tyler. Go watch some of his videos. We'll have to have you on here again soon.
Absolutely.